Hello. I'm talking differently to them. Is on Kanye's comment. You see, we have to tread carefully on this issue because I know that slavery is evil. Slavery is gruesome. Slavery is not something that humans are comfortable with. So in any form, slavery in any form is evil because it involves the psychological war. It involves changing people's history, changing people's identity, completely changing people. That is why it is evil. That is why it's dangerous. But we have to understand something. See, until we start looking at things in a different angle, we cannot appreciate its importance. So you really have to look at Kanye West. On what context was he saying this? See, last time I spoke about context. It's very important. What people say is very important. For it to have a true meaning, you need to understand the context. So, but if you take away the context and start flying with what somebody said, you get it wrong. You have to put them together. You see, let's analyze what Kanye mean by saying 400 years of slavery sounds like a choice. On what context? You see, was he doing it, to diminish the effects and the consequences of slavery on Africans? So, on what grounds? So, if you look at it critically, he wasn't saying it from the point of weakness. He wasn't saying it from the point of being a victim. It's all about, it's a wake-up call for us to look at things in a different angle rather than jumping on the bandwagon trying to squeeze Kanye or trying to kill him or trying to stop him from what he's saying. You see, he has said what he said. The question is, on what context? What was he trying to achieve? What was his purpose? These things are important. We don't just, when somebody says something, everybody's on them, everybody's on him, everybody's trying to stop him. That is not proper. You have to sit back and look at the context. What was he saying? So if you separate the context from the statement or from the comment, it becomes useless. So it is high time we started looking at things in a proper way. Look at this thing now. This is a glass of water. So how do you look at this? Do you look at it on what is your perspective? Some people will say it's half full, some people will say half empty. That is the way to look at issues. You don't look at something from a narrow perspective. I think unless you look at it in a wider perspective, you will not understand from what angle Kanye was coming from. So we need to look at something from different perspective. That is the only time we can make meaning out of it. So on what level, what is Kanye trying to achieve? So if we look at something from a narrow perspective, we become very angry. We show hatred and we demonstrate that fear. You see, if you respond, to what people say, if you react, we are only reacting. We are not responding. We are only reacting towards what Kanye said, and we are not responding. You see, when you respond, you look at something from a broader perspective rather than from a narrow perspective. So if you look at it from a broader perspective, what he's saying is a wake-up call. He's trying to tell you the power you have, the power of choice, The power to take decision lies on you. So we shouldn't follow everybody and go all the same direction, trying to stone Kanye. Can you look at yourself and walk back a little bit and look at yourself, ask yourself, from what context? What is the context? What is the background of what he's saying? So I know that slavery is evil. It's the worst part of it is the psychological trauma. The difficulty is the pain people who went through it, had. It was a gruesome thing. It was an experience nobody would dream of. And it's not something you can make mockery of. So that is why I advise people to tread on this issue carefully. You have to tread on it with caution. Because people lost their life. People lost their background. People lost their history. People lost their culture. People lost completely everything they had. But at the same time, we also have to look at things in a certain way. Until you look at things in a certain way, you won't make out the meaning. I don't think Kanye was trying to diminish or to reduce the impact and the consequences of slavery. What he was saying was for us to come out from, a weak point. From, he was trying to, it's a wake-up call for us to wake up. For us to stand on our feet. We should stop looking at things from the victim perspective. So, because if you look at things from a victim perspective, you're not going to make any change. You're not going to make any progress. Am I making progress as I'm saying this? So, what I'm saying in effect is that we need to tread carefully on this comment. Kanye is not selling you out. Kanye is not diminishing the consequences of slavery on Africans. Because slavery involves psychological impact, changing people's culture, changing people's history, rewriting it. That is why it's evil. That's why it looks as if it's taking too long. Because such a trauma, not everybody can survive it. So, but what Kanye is saying that, look, time has come for us to make choices. You see, if you don't understand it, then we will not make progress. If you want to make progress, look at things from a different perspective, look at discussions, look at it objectively. So if you look at the comment Kanye made objectively, it's a wake-up call. It's telling you to wake up. It's telling us to wake up. It's telling us to, come out from the points of weakness. You have strength. Choice is power. The greatest thing God gave man is choice. And that choice includes free will. And that is why when it comes to choice and free will, God does not come into it. He doesn't want to play a part. He doesn't want to violate his will. You see, he has said, let them have dominion. By that singular statement, God has taken himself away physically. So now it is our responsibility to take action. It is our responsibility to move away from the points, from a lower point to a higher point, to move away from a point of weakness to the point of strength. God has blessed us with choice. That is what he's saying, that if things were to be brought out forward now, that it sounds like a choice. So most of the things we see today is our choice. So if you don't look at it from different perspective, you will be asking people to go and hang Kanye. But what he's saying that we should look at things from a different angle. It's high time we change things. It's high time we look at things in a different angle. Until you see it that way, you cannot do anything. You see, what people are talking is fear. What is saying that fear limits your choices. When you are afraid, you cannot do anything. See, what keeps people in poverty is fear. There is no other thing. And what makes people to oppress another person is also fear. So everything is built on fear. So all the evil we are seeing, all of them is built on fear. So fear is a paralyzing factor. Fear kills. So we have this huge choice with us. God has given us this free will and said, let them have dominion. Yet we are afraid. See, why are people jumping on this bandwagon to condemn Kanye is because of fear. We are afraid. Fear makes you not to take responsibility. Fear makes you to see when somebody is advising you, you see it as somebody is condemning you. So fear makes you not to love your brother. Fear makes you not to love anybody. So when he says that 400 years of slavery sounds like a choice, he is not saying or diminishing the consequences and impact of slavery on people, because slavery is evil. In the first place, you should not do anything that will, bring such a gruesome or feeling on other people. You shouldn't hurt people. But what he's saying, in effect, is we are looking at things from a point of fear, from point of hatred. You see, until you look at things properly, you wouldn't know where he's coming from. Because when you are fear, you render the power of choice useless. You make the power of choice impotent. So my coming here to make this video is a choice. And that choice is always built on fear. So most people make choices, but those choices they are making, when you look at it, you see, the wrong choices are always based on fear. One mind told me not to make this video, one mind is telling me to make it. But if I don't make it, I am dwelling in fear. Because fear is what holds somebody in captivity. So he is talking of mental slavery. The impact, 400 years of the impact. So is it not high time we wake up? Is it not high time we move forward? So generation upon generation has to dwell on it. And then we wouldn't make progress. Progress is important as well. So he is not diminishing or reducing the impact of slavery or the consequences. But what he's saying is that, look, it's a choice in the sense that we can look at this from a different perspective. You see, when you fear, you cannot make a choice. You cannot exercise your choice anymore. So what keeps us in bondage mentally is fear. The world is an open door. The world is an open door. Whether you like it or not, the world is an open door. Free yourself. If you're gonna dwell in slavery and not moving forward, you are not doing yourself a good service. You are doing a disservice to yourself. That means our children will not have future again. We need to allow our children to have future. He is not saying or diminishing the mental things, the mental impact, the psychological impact of slavery. How it has conditioned people. But what he's saying that if it were to be brought at moment, that it's a choice. Because you cannot tell me, you cannot exercise your free will. Why are we afraid of dying? Why are we afraid of taking decisions? Why are we afraid of not breaking away from the bondage, from the shackle we've allowed ourselves into or we find ourselves into? So these things are necessary. These things are important. Let me tell you, God cannot violate his words. God cannot break his words. He has promised us that we should have dominion. That is his word. He's not going to come here to do anything for you. You're going to do it. So life is about understanding this, that look, God has given you free will. Unless you move, God would not move. I am stating it clear. I'm stating it in a clear manner. Unless you move, God will not move. Because God has said, I've given them dominion. Let them have dominion. That means God has moved himself away physically and allow us to use our free will to do things for him. So God cannot come and do things for you unless you do it. We have a total misconception of praying and praying and praying and praying without doing anything, even though it's written in the Bible that faith without work is useless. We cannot say it. You see, if you keep on praying and praying and you don't do anything, that prayer becomes useless. That means you don't believe in the prayer you're saying in the first instance. So, in the Bible, Jesus Christ demonstrated that, look, action is important. Making it happen is important. Doing it is important. God cannot come from heaven and do it for you. You need to do it. You need to execute it. I'm not saying you shouldn't pray, but I'm saying that you are taking 100% prayer and not doing anything. Out of 24 hours, you pray for 24 hours. How can you make a change? That means you don't understand what is happening. So, God is telling us, look, pray, but action is more important. Because if you are praying and praying, that means you don't understand it. You understand the content and of your prayers you are making. You need to do something. You see, without you doing something, nothing happens. That's why humans are important to God. Humans are God's vessels. We are vessels to God. God uses us to do something. So, until you understand this, you will fold your hand and think things will get done by themselves. You see, why we jump on the bad wagon all this time and we keep on, if we hear a comment, we fly. It looks like is the water poured on the fire, water poured on the oil. See, we need to cool down, analyze things, and see how we move forward. Look at things from a different angle. So, whenever you act on that, you are not you are working from the point of fear. See, why everybody's jumping on this bad wagon about what Kanye said is because of fear. Why are we afraid? What he's telling you is that the fear made people to be what they are. You see, you have a choice. That choice is built on free will. You can tell me to do something, I have a choice not to do it. Despite the fact that you want to kill me, you better kill me. What he's saying that we have a free will, we have a choice. We should always exercise it. So, certain times, poverty is a choice. Because you refuse to be productive. You refuse to use your talent. You refuse to open a book that is in front of you and read it to understand it. So most of the things we are afraid of is because we don't want to take responsibility. People love to be slaves rather than to be effective. People love slavery rather than freedom. Because when you have freedom, you have responsibility. And responsibility is a huge burden. Not everybody can carry it. So, if you don't take responsibility, you are indirectly submitting yourself to slavery. When you don't take responsibility, you are making yourself a slave. That is what he's saying. Look at it from a broader perspective. Don't go out in a narrow perspective and fly out with it. What kind of thing are you thinking? When somebody says something to you, you need to read it. Look at the context. On what context was Kanye saying this? He was trying to tell you that we have a free will. We have a choice. And that choice based on responsibility. People prefer slavery to responsibility. People prefer slavery to freedom. So if you want to have freedom, you must also take responsibility. So if you don't want to take responsibility, you are directly submitting yourself to slavery. You are directly shackling yourself, not any other person. When he says it's a choice, means we fail to take responsibility. And the same thing 400 years ago we failed to take is what we are also not taking today. After 400 years, we're still making the same mistake. What he's saying is that it's a mistake for us not to take responsibility. Because if you don't take responsibility, it's a direct passport to slavery. Anytime a man fails to take responsibility, he is submitting himself to slavery. That's a direct passport to slavery. It's a direct action to slavery. It leads to slavery. The only thing that can stop you from being a slave is taking responsibility. What he's saying that we need to start taking responsibility is a wake-up call for us to take responsibility rather than seeing it from a narrow perspective. Most of us see things from a narrow perspective. Why can't we look at things objectively? Somebody made a statement. We don't want to look at it objectively. The truth is very hard. When somebody tells you the truth, you don't like it. Nobody ever likes the truth. The truth is that we are not taking responsibility. The truth is that we are sending ourselves to hell by not taking responsibility. So anytime you take responsibility, you are moving yourself from slavery. But anytime you don't take responsibility, you are pushing yourself to slavery. And that is what we are seeing today. Kanye is directly telling you to start taking responsibility. It's a wake-up call for us to take responsibility rather than seeing it from a negative perspective, looking at it from a subjective angle. So, looking at comments from a narrow perspective is not helpful in any way. It will liberate you. Remember, people prefer slavery to freedom because they know freedom involves huge tax. Everybody's running away from freedom because it involves responsibility, involves taking decision, involves using your free will objectively, involves making a choice objectively. But when you don't want to take responsibility, you keep on blaming people. So today I have a responsibility of making this video or not making it. If I don't make it, I keep on blaming people. I see things from a narrow perspective. I look at things subjectively instead of being objective. Kanye was being objective by telling you that you have a choice today to make. Rather than crucifying, it's not diminishing the slavery. It's not diminishing the impact, the consequences. It's not diminishing it. He's not reducing it in any way. He's trying to tell you, look, we need to take responsibility. We need to free ourselves mentally. You see, slavery has the consequences of conditioning people. So, by not taking responsibility, it means we've conditioned ourselves. And once you condition yourself in this manner, what you see is failure all the time. What you see is blaming people, protest and anger and hatred. Why? See, when you look at things objectively, you start having the love. You start ruling away fear. Because fear makes you not to take responsibility. Fear makes you to go into the path of slavery because you feel it's an easy way out. Because freedom involves responsibility. Freedom involves taking decisions. Freedom involves working extra. Nobody wants to do it. So, if you don't like responsibility, that means you will like slavery. So, what is saying that it is our inability to take responsibility that leads to slavery. And it is our inability to understand and to take advantage of the choices we have. So you have a choice of saying no to evil thing. Like the way we are in the world today. We all have a choice of saying no to evil. But what are we seeing on our streets? What are we seeing in the streets and everywhere? People prefer easy way out, which is slavery, which is lack of responsibility, which means we don't want to take responsibility. What we do is to blame everybody, blame. Pray, and you don't do anything. Praying without work, praying without making it happen is a useless prayer. So we need to wake up. Jesus Christ talk of Good Samaritan. So you don't end your prayer in the church. You end it in the street. So to recap what I'm saying, Kanye West, his comment, we should, tread it with caution. He is trying to tell us, look, we need to take responsibility. We should not look at it from a narrow perspective. Rather, we should look at it from a broader perspective and be objective.